At her birthday celebration, my stepmother accused me of stealing the family business for her daughter, shouting, "Give back what doesn't belong to you." Jeered out, I returned 2 hours later and shocked everyone. My stepmother invited me to her birthday celebration only to publicly accuse me of taking the family business from her daughter. "Give back what doesn't belong to you," she shouted at me. The other guests began jeering and forced me to leave the event. 2 hours later, I came back and shocked everyone. I left the marble foyer of that extravagant mansion in a daze, my heart pounding so hard I could barely catch my breath in the cool, indifferent night. Every jeer and insult from those well-dressed strangers felt like a weight crushing my soul. I'd spent years building my reputation, working tirelessly under the golden glow of my father's legacy, only to be betrayed in one explosive moment by the very people I once trusted. As I stepped out onto the rain-slicked pavement, I vowed silently that this humiliation would not be the end, but rather the spark that ignited a long overdue reckoning. I found refuge in a quiet, dimly lit bar several blocks away, where the clink of glasses and murmured conversations provided a stark contrast to the chaos of the party. There, amid the haze of cigarette smoke and the drone of a blues guitar, I began to piece together the fragments of a plan that had been fermenting in my mind for years. My stepmother's accusation wasn't just an outburst born of envy. It was a calculated move meant to undermine everything I'd built. For as long as I could remember, she had sought to erase my presence, to redirect the family fortune toward her own daughter, who had been groomed for a role she neither deserved, nor was capable of fulfilling. It was a quiet coup, executed behind closed doors with whispered promises and signed documents, until that fateful night when everything unraveled in a single, humiliating moment. I had spent countless nights poring over old ledgers, yellowed, contracts and hidden letters left by my late father, a man of unparalleled integrity who had built our family business on hard work and honesty. In secret, I had assembled a dossier of every injustice, every secret amendment that had been made after his death. I knew that the business was not stolen from anyone. It had always been mine by right, a trust passed down through blood and honor. That trust had been tainted by greed and deception, and now, with irrefutable evidence in my hands, I was ready to reclaim what was always mine. For 2 long hours, I was a ghost in the night, revisiting old memories and revising my strategy. I remembered the quiet afternoons spent in the dusty attic of our family estate, where I'd discovered my father's hidden safe and a box of documents that would one day serve as my salvation. I recalled the furtive glances and hushed conversations. Whenever my stepmother's daughter was mentioned, the subtle hints that something was terribly amiss in the corridors of power. That night, the pieces finally fell into place. I realized that the real theft wasn't of money or assets. It was of trust, of legacy, and of the integrity that once defined us. Armed with my dossier and a steely resolve, I returned to the mansion, under the cover of twilight, unnoticed by the lingering staff and lingering guests, still grappling with the scandal of my abrupt departure. I walked through the ornate corridors with measured steps, each echo a reminder of the promises I had made to myself and to my father's memory. In the grand ballroom, where moments before chaos reigned, a hush had fallen. The guests clustered, in uncertain groups, their eyes darting around in search of the source of the disturbance. I made my way to the center of the room, the ancient chandeliers casting fractured light on my determined face. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, my voice steady and unwavering, "I ask you to listen to the truth, because tonight every secret, every lie will be brought into the light." I unfolded the first of the many documents, letting the crisp pages flutter in the breeze from an open window. The original contracts my father had signed, untouched by the corrosive ink of betrayal, detailed exactly how the family business was to be shared. Every page was a testament to his faith in fairness, a contract of honor that had been deliberately subverted by those hungry for power. I could see the shock ripple through the crowd, the once confident sneers replaced by looks of astonishment and regret. As I continued, I recounted in detail the nights I'd spent unraveling a web of deceit. I described how I had discovered clandestine meetings in the dead of night, where conspiracies were hatched and loyalties were bartered like cheap trinkets. I explained how my stepmother, under the guise of maternal concern, had manipulated every situation to drive a wedge between me and the rest of the family. I revealed that her daughter, unprepared and unworthy, had been the unwitting pawn in a game of greed that spanned decades. Each word was punctuated by the weight of truth, each sentence a blow against the carefully constructed facade that had deceived us all. The room was silent, save for the soft shuffling of papers and the occasional stifled gasp. I could see the guilt in the eyes of some older relatives, the ones who had watched silently as the family's honor was eroded away. And then, as if summoned by fate itself, an unexpected ally stepped forward from the shadows, a family friend whose loyalty to my father had never wavered. With trembling hands, he produced additional evidence, letters, bank statements, and private recordings that corroborated every word I had spoken. His voice cracked as he testified to the long years of manipulation and the systematic erasure of my rightful claim. The evidence was overwhelming, and even those who had once jeered could not help but be swept up in the tidal wave of truth. I paused, letting the gravity of the moment sink in. The applause that began as a trickle soon swelled into a resounding ovation, a public acknowledgement that justice, however delayed, had finally been served. I saw the arrogance drain from my stepmother's face, replaced by a stunned realization that her carefully laid plans had crumbled into dust. The atmosphere in the room shifted from one of scorn to an almost sacred silence, as if everyone present understood that they were witnessing the turning of a new page in our family's storied history. In that charged moment, I realized that my fight was never just about the business. It was about reclaiming my identity, restoring my father's legacy, and mending the fractures that had long divided our family. I spoke not just to the assembly of skeptical relatives and curious onlookers, but to the very soul of the family, the collective memory of a man whose life had been defined by integrity, and whose absence had left a void filled by greed and deceit. I explained that the documents I held were not merely legal instruments, but sacred relics of trust and honor that deserved to be revered rather than exploited. As the night deepened, the mansion transformed from a den of betrayal into a forum for redemption. I could feel the tides of change turning, the old guard of corrupt power dissipating like mist under the morning sun. The media, drawn by whispers of a family scandal, began to swarm outside the estate, their cameras and recorders capturing every nuance of the unfolding drama. In that moment, I knew that our private struggle had become a public reckoning, a cautionary tale about the corrosive nature of envy and the enduring power of truth. In the days that followed, the fallout was swift and relentless. Legal actions were launched, investigations opened, and the true extent of the family's internal treachery was laid bare for all to see. My stepmother, once the unchallenged matriarch of our crumbling empire, found herself isolated, her influence evaporating as allies turned their backs on her. I worked tirelessly with a dedicated team of lawyers and investigators to ensure that every fraudulent transaction was exposed, every manipulated document was invalidated, and every wrong was righted in the court of public opinion. Yet, amidst the chaos and the relentless scrutiny, I found solace in the quiet moments of introspection. I remembered the long, solitary hours spent in my father's study, poring over books and letters, absorbing the lessons he had left behind. His words, etched in the margins of old journals, had always been a beacon guiding me through the darkest times. Now, more than ever, I felt compelled to honor his memory, not by seeking revenge, but by restoring the principles he had cherished: honesty, perseverance, and the unwavering belief that truth will always prevail. Even as the legal battles raged, on and the business slowly began to rebuild on a foundation of renewed transparency. I could not forget the sting of that night. The echoes of my stepmother's furious accusations and the venom in the crowd's jeers lingered long after the formalities had ended. But those painful memories, rather than anchoring me in bitterness, served as a constant reminder of the cost, of deception and the necessity of standing up for one's rights. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the resolve to confront it head-on, even when the odds were stacked against you. In time, the wounds began to heal, replaced by a cautious optimism that the future could be brighter if built on a foundation of truth and mutual respect. The business that had once been a battleground of rival ambitions slowly evolved into a symbol of unity and resilience, a living testament to the idea that even the deepest betrayals can be overcome by the relentless pursuit of justice. I forged new relationships with distant relatives who had long been sidelined by the toxic dynamics of the past, and together we began to chart a new course for our family's legacy, one defined not by greed and power struggles, but by compassion, accountability, and a shared vision for a better tomorrow. Looking back on that fateful night, I realized that every moment of humiliation and every bitter word was a necessary step in a journey I had no choice but to undertake. In returning to the hall and exposing the truth, I not only reclaimed my rightful place in the family business, but I also ignited a spark that would forever change the course of our family history. That night taught me that redemption is possible, even in the midst of scandal and betrayal, and that the courage to confront our darkest secrets can ultimately lead to a brighter, more authentic future. Now, whenever I catch a glimpse of the old mansion, or hear whispers of the scandal that once rocked our family to its core, I am reminded of the transformative power of truth. A truth that, no matter how deeply buried, will always rise to the surface, demanding justice and offering hope.